All right, we're going to go ahead and jump in. I'm going to start with some introductions. We have a lot of valuable, great information to share with you today. Welcome to our practical tips to support sandwich generation caregivers, a Zoom class with our guest speaker today, Cynthia Hoffman. I want to do a little bit of housekeeping before we jump in. If you lose connection with us or have any technical difficulties throughout the presentation, I'll encourage you to toggle around your screen and look for that box, that Q&A box that works as a text messaging system with my back office, and they will be sure to help you if you're having any trouble hearing or seeing us today. I will also encourage you to use that same Q&A box to ask questions or make comments throughout the presentation. We are running this somewhat casually, as I do all of our classes. We want it to be valuable to you, and we have a lot of information to share with you, but we encourage feedback and participation via that Q&A box. Your video and audio will remain off throughout the presentation, but again, we encourage your feedback through the Q&A box there. The other housekeeping thing is that we're going to be recording this presentation. So again, there's so much information that we have to share with you today. So rather than you trying to diligently take notes, know that we will have a recording of this class and we'll make that available to you on our YouTube page in the days following. And that'll be up on our YouTube page for quite some time for you to re-listen or share with friends and family as you see fit. For those listening in that I have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Lisa Evanevoli. I am a certified financial planner and owner and lead advisor of my firm, ARK Financial Wellness. I've been in this industry, in the financial planning world, for going on 24 years next month in April. My team and I really pride ourselves on the level of service and the value that we provide to our clients. We really try to go above and beyond expectations of what one would look at as a normal services offered by a financial planner. We really strive and work to aid clients in progressing and achieving their goals, both on a financial and a personal level, hence our name, Financial Wellness. We really work to create one's financial life around their core values and goals in order to achieve this. So with that, I want to also talk a little bit about goals, right? So I think people think about financial advisors as one that helps them achieve fun goals, right? We're thinking about retiring. We want to maybe upsize our house. We've grown out of it, or downsize, or move to a retirement community. Maybe we need to buy a new car. Maybe we're looking to send the kids to college. So generally more uplifting things. While they can be a drain on our finances, conversations are such that we're working towards achieving more positive goals or things that improve our quality of life. I think sometimes many forget that a financial planner should also be there for you to bring to the surface and talk with you about things that are not so fun to plan for on a life and a financial level. And that is death, disability, and incapacity, not only for yourself, but also for your loved ones. All of these things affect you on an emotional state, and in turn sort of factor into the trajectory of your financial life. So we really try to act as your core. I think if you're working with a financial advisor and the only thing they're primarily doing for you is managing your investments or your retirement savings, that they're really doing you a disservice. In my opinion, your financial advisor should really act as your core, as your person, your base that connects you with all of the outside professionals that can help you in all aspects of your life. So for us, we serve as that base for our clients, and we connect them, and not only connect them and introduce them to the appropriate professionals to help them achieve various goals and objectives, but work in concert with those people. So I'm talking about your tax planner, your CPA, your estate plan attorney, to make sure that you've got the appropriate documentation set up in the event of death or disability. It eases your stress level and provides, like I said, this level of service that is just above and beyond. We also work in concert with everything from my clients will call me with questions on everything from home and auto insurance, real estate agent, life coaching, organization. And so I've tried to connect myself with those in our community that I feel are qualified and provide a level of service that is also above and beyond, so that we can kind of spread our wings for our clients. Cynthia, our guest speaker today, is one that really offers a level of service that I feel is crucial to that of my clients, friends, and family that have taken on a caregiver role, like it or not. Caregivers hold a very, very special place in my heart for a number of reasons. I, too, am a caregiver for my learning and behaviorally challenged older brother. So I feel I can really relate to the struggles and the challenges and the constant guilt that come with caring for a loved one, in addition to working full time, and in addition to caring for my own family and my own young children, and being a wife, and all of these struggles, the challenges that we all face as caregivers. So I see it on a personal level. And then in the past 24 years, I have story after story after story of clients who have inadvertently fallen into this caregiver role. And many of those clients are referred to as the sandwich generation. To me, it's not really an age, but it often is those in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who were a bit sandwiched. We are oftentimes spread too thin and taking care of all of the duties and tasks that come with aging parents or young children, or even grandchildren. We have parents that are now also helping to raise grandchildren. So it's being spread too thin that causes our stress level to go crazy. And that filters in again to our financial life. If we are emotionally imbalanced and stressed and constantly worried about all of these different things in our life, it affects our own goals. So, maybe you come to me initially 10 years earlier before you become this caregiver, this sandwich generation caregiver, and we're excited and we've got this plan and we have this plan in action for achieving all of these saving goals. And we talk about the different buckets of money your funds need to go into, and you're really doing a good job. And then your mom gets diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and you're forced to become her caregiver on many different levels, arrange things on her day-to-day finances and help her. And then sometimes, if that proceeds for a period of time, it will begin to filter into my client's financial life. So those goals and things that we had set 10 years earlier, they feel this obligation to help a parent or help a friend or help another loved one on so many different levels that it affects them in more ways than one. So with that, I'm going to give a brief introduction of our guest speaker, Cynthia. I've already probably talked too long, but again, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. We're kind of running this as an interactive session. So while Cynthia will be giving the majority of the presentation, you'll see me kind of slide in here and there with some comments or pertinent questions, talking about how we work in concert for the betterment of our clients and to help provide peace of mind. Cynthia is the principal and founder of her firm, Best Life Advisors. She is a certified senior advisor and a daily money manager. So we'll get more into that early on in the presentation about what a daily money manager is and how that's different than my role as your financial planner. Cynthia brings a lifetime of experience to navigating change to the business of helping older adults maintain their independence. Best Life Advisors provides concierge-style assistance with a focus on daily money management for those in crisis or facing lifestyle changes. They reduce the burden of daily tasks so that you can concentrate your time on the important parts of your life, your relationships, your interests, and your values. As a member of the Society of Certified Senior Advisors and the American Association of Daily Money Managers, Cynthia adheres to their code of ethics and standards of practice. Cynthia serves the greater St. Louis region and surrounding areas, and thanks to the surgence of working remotely, she also has the ability to work remotely alongside you. With that, I'm going to turn things over to you, Cynthia, to dig into the core of this presentation and I look forward to hearing all of the valuable information that I know you have to share today.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. So first, I'm going to start out by sharing the screen.
Zoom that real quick.
There we go. I hit the wrong button. Sorry. Okay, here it comes. So we're going to move on to the next slide, but thank you, Lisa, for the introduction. And I'll just kind of start again and say that we are Best Life Advisors, a daily money manager, and we do work with someone's financial team to help relieve some of the burden of day-to-day financial matters, both for those who find financial chores difficult, which can be people really at any age, or those who simply prefer to spend their time with other pursuits. So particularly with a sandwich gen caregiver, you're splitting time and energy between perhaps raising children and caring for older adults, and of course, maybe a spouse, and they all need you. And it takes a lot of time and energy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the profession of a daily money manager. As a whole, it's relatively new, and like Lisa's field of financial advising and planning, it's growing rapidly. AARP just listed us as one of the 5 important financial advisors that someone might need. So Lisa, these include both daily money managers and financial planners, along with your insurance agent and your estate planning and elder care lawyers, and that all important, as we know right now, tax preparer. But daily money managers have recently been featured in the Wall Street Journal, in Motley Fool, Investors Business Daily, and the International Business Times, and very recently in Slate Online. But Lisa, before I talk about the kinds of things that I do for people who need my services, I'd like to talk just a little bit about the demographics of caregiving and briefly walk through a bit of the why behind the growth in this profession over the last 25 years. So Rosalind Carter said, there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregiving. I think we may each be in these roles over our lives. We'll be in one of these roles or all of these roles at some point in our lives. But right now, as of 2020, there are 53 million family caregivers in the US alone. So if you're a sandwich gen caregiver, you are definitely not alone. And that number does not include those giving care to their children. This includes people who are giving care to adults over the age of 18. So almost 2 out of every 10 people in the US. And I'm an accountant, so I tend to like a little bit of the statistics. So I'm just going to throw some statistics at you just to give you some background on caregiving, and then why the daily money manager role has started to grow in this period of time. So here's some stats. The average age of caregivers, and you were talking a little bit about sandwich gen people, average age of caregivers is 49 years old, and 61% are women. 60% of those work full time. And of course, continuing with the 6 numbers, 6 out of 10 have experienced some kind of impact or change to their employment. So taking time off, having to reduce hours to take someone to the doctor, taking a leave of absence in a serious situation, turning down promotions, and even retiring early and losing their job. So caregiving can really have an impact on your long-term financial security. And that's where Lisa comes in, is trying to help you figure out how to maintain your security over the long run. 3 out of 4 caregivers of adults care for one person, but a quarter of those people care for 2 or more adults, and that is a rising statistic. So it's becoming more and more the case that you may care for more than one adult. And this suggests that our nation of Americans will need to continue to step up to provide this unpaid care to family, friends, neighbors, people who might need assistance due to health or functional needs. Now, if you think about this in terms of hours of time, 1 in 3 of these caregivers give 20 unpaid hours of care each week. And that can range from really simple things, Lisa, like just transportation and doing household chores. I mean, you probably have run into that. And that then ranges to more complex things like caregiving for chronic illnesses. You were talking about your brother, people who have physical limitations. That can get very complex. And as the people listening may realize, there's no training for this. It is all on the job. You have to learn how to work with someone who has dementia. You have to learn how to give medications properly. You have to learn how to get someone in and out of a vehicle who may or may not be able to do that easily. So all of that training happens on the job. And sometimes I tell people I wish that people who have been in those caregiving roles could just do the Vulcan mind meld and give us the information they have in their heads, because you learn so much when you are a caregiver about the different ways that people need help.
And it's all, this often falls on the patriarch of the family, right? There's one person that generally takes on this role in every aspect of every family. There's always at least one person. And it can be very overwhelming. And for my brother, I feel that, my family comes to me with everything. I'm the go-to, like Lisa will take care of it. She'll figure it out. When it comes to him, I feel lost. I feel out of control. It's very much out of my realm of the things I know or can quickly look up, Medicaid questions and long-term care questions, and trying to find facilities that have cater to his needs. So you feel very much out of control. So you sort of start to shut down. And so even the most put together people, type A personalities like myself, who are control freaks, you feel you're out of control because you're just so out of your element. So that's where folks like you come in and give us some peace of mind. Okay, well, there are options, and this is how you research those options, and there are resources. So when we met, Cynthia, I just felt like you were, the realm of information that you have to share, and just simply having one person, a go-to that can provide me some resources where I don't even know where to start. Google can't help me with that. So I think it's great.
Yeah, that is so true. And the resources are vast. And so it's really great to have the networks like the Adam group and the CSA group that I belong to. But, in addition to all the training that we don't have, on top of this, the caregivers may also be there to help financially. Not only are they giving their unpaid time, but a lot of times they're paying for things to fill in the gaps for a loved one whose fixed income may not quite stretch to cover their needs. That's a real difficult problem. But here I want to just talk about women. It's International Women's Day today. The impact on women in the caregiving roles is particularly significant. Health stressors, financial impacts. It's the women mainly who give up promotions and take time off for caregiving and bear the responsibility and the main burden of all of that. I'm not saying it's solely women, but 60% of caregivers are women, and that's a lot of time spent. It affects their long-term earning ability, and those are considerations that have to be dealt with and thought about. And I'm very glad to see that more companies are allowing people to work from home, because that changes the equation here quite dramatically. So with the aging of baby boomers, what we think about now is that there's going to be a coming caregiver gap. There are going to be fewer people to take care of us, the baby boomers. And you're not quite a baby boomer, Lisa, but I certainly am. So I always think, yikes, I'm going to be in trouble someday. Then if you switch to thinking about the daily financial world that I live in, about a third of caregivers report that time spent managing the recipient's finances is very time consuming. If you look at a 5-point scale, 4 to 5 is typically where people put financial caregiving, particularly if there's an emotional or mental health issue or some kind of a memory problem. So caregivers are struggling with dealing with all the responsibilities, from the health side to just the day-to-day maintenance of homes. And then they're having to deal with the finances as well. And that's where working with a team like Lisa was talking about comes into play. So the changes in this caregiving landscape is the first of several reasons for the evolution of the daily money manager as one of those 5 key advisors someone should have. So let's talk about another big shift that happens, that's happening and has happened. In the year 1900, if you were born, think about this. If you were born in 1900, you would expect to live to the grand old age of 47. So you wouldn't even make Social Security. And now that figure is 79. So 32 years longer in a little over 100 years. And if you're an average 65-year-old retiree, you actually have 20 more years to live. So add another 6 years on. So 38 years longer than someone born in the early part of the century. Significantly living longer. And how you're living is really key here. So death used to be from infectious disease, sort of like our current pandemic. But with the advent of antibiotics, that's no longer your biggest concern. Your biggest concern is chronic illness and the comorbidities of several illnesses combined. That's replaced infectious disease as the leading cause of death. So all the things you hear about, heart disease, cancer, strokes, Alzheimer's. And of course, there's that newest thing. I don't know if you've heard about it, Lisa. It's called diabesity. So you combine diabetes and obesity together, and it becomes this new thing called diabesity. So we're living longer, but with chronic health concerns. And if you combine this then with a third change, and that is the change in the family structure. So think about it, you're living longer. This used to be the typical family structure, a wide supportive pyramid. This is how I grew up. My grandparents may have been at the top there, and the middle section was my parents, and they were 8 in their family. Each of my parents had 8 siblings. And then all the siblings, for the most part, had 4 or 5, maybe 6 kids. So it was a very broad pyramid with 3 generations and lots of support. So when the people married, that would bring in some more family connections. And so that my aunt, I had a maiden aunt who never got married. She had lots of nieces and nephews, as well as siblings who could help her with her life. My parents, that's kind of how they lived. So that has changed to this. It's more like a beanpole. And typically, I don't know if you're much of a gardener, but when you do beans, usually you want them on a structure because they need a little support. Unless they're bush beans, but pole beans, you need a support. And so now we've got up to 5 generations with few or sometimes no children in each generation. So again, sandwich generation, we're leading to terms like that. Dinks, dual income, no kids, solo agers, elder orphans. So this is a structure where there isn't a lot of support at each level, and you have people taking care of people on both sides. So as the future evolves, you're going to have unpaid caregivers become even more stretched, people living longer with more health concerns. And as our structure continues to beanpole, it's going to be important to have that team of people to support those baby boomers and really to help answer that all-important question that most older adults will struggle with in their lifetime. The question of, will I have enough? And it's not just enough money, but enough support in all the different aspects of their life. And that's why, Lisa, I really appreciate that about your business approach, that you're looking at the future in a very holistic way. So I don't know if you want to talk about that at all in context, but I think
yeah.
appeal to me about your practice.
Right. It's just so important. I think people don't realize that how much their emotional state and the outside factors in their life affect their ability to progress towards achieving their financial goals. You know, they come in, I know I need to be saving more. I know I want to retire at this age. I feel like as fast as money's coming in, money's flowing out. But when we really sit down and talk, it's not just about the dollars and cents and money in and out. When I really get to know them on a whole different level, on a holistic level, I come to realize and understand that part of their stressor and part of what's keeping them from meeting their goals is because they are a caregiver, or there's something else going on in their life that's preventing them from, pushing forward, or they're extremely unhappy in their job or in their career choice, and it's got them completely stressed out. And it's all they can focus on. And they know they need to be doing more and saving more, but they're being prevented from doing that because there's some other things going on a holistic level in their life that's kind of overtaking them from an emotional standpoint. We all make money and decisions on our money based on emotion and outside factors in our life. So if we can really dig deep and help clients to, hey, I've got a resource for you that can maybe help you sleep better at night and come up with some answers to help your mom. I know you don't live nearby. Your dad passed away. You're worried about her. You're worried about her getting taken advantage of or becoming a victim of fraud. You're worried she's not paying her bills on time. I have somebody that might be able to help you with that. So just giving them that peace of mind helps us. We can help them take care of that kind of issue or thing that's holding them back in their financial life, work with them, in concert with them with all these different types of professionals, and knock these things out. And then we can redirect the focus back on them and achieving the things that they want to do and retiring early so that they can go on a vacation and take their kids and grandkids on a vacation every year or visit mom every month. They're feeling guilty because they're not getting to visit mom and they need some outside help, but they just don't have the time. So trying to help them build in the time to where they don't feel guilty anymore and they can take the trip to go see mom, make sure everything's okay once or twice a month. So it all, the holistic planning is what is really missing, I think, in the financial planning industry. And it's just so very, very important.
Yeah. And I think there are so many supports that people don't know about. Care managers is a new and growing field. People who are social workers and transportation companies that are popping up to serve needs that, I just actually told a client yesterday, I said, here's a couple of different transportation companies. They're getting a hip replacement and need transportation to and from the hospital. And
Right.
it's not like the old days. You literally get checked out kind of almost the same day and sent home once you could walk with a walker. And that person didn't have any supports to do that. So just providing those simple resources that they can then call and say, and get the information themselves. Palliative care and hospice care has grown dramatically, and people need to be educated about what those things do and what they mean, and not be afraid of things like hospice. And all the living options that are out there for people who don't want to stay in their homes and want to live in community. Really amazing to see what's out there. And, as well as someone like me, a daily money manager. So let's talk a little bit about that. So a daily money manager is someone who performs the day-to-day personal financial tasks for an individual or family who is either unable to or wants relief from the time it takes to perform those tasks. So I don't get involved in investing money. I don't do financial or retirement planning, not a lawyer, not a tax preparer or a CPA, although I used to be a CPA. But I work with these parties on a day-to-day, what I always call granular level. It's the little details that take so much time. I've spent time on the phone just waiting for someone, on hold. It just takes so much of your time to do a lot of those little things. And if you are a caregiver, that time gets eaten up really fast. So we are in many ways like you, Lisa, we're the glue that can kind of hold things together only on the day-to-day level. So I will potentially take on projects. I call it financial house cleaning, coming in and help people go through boxes of files, or help them pull together what is commonly known as ICE plans in case of emergency, or some people call it end-of-life plans. But those plans that people need at the if something goes wrong, someone can walk in and take over things and help. As well as doing the ongoing monthly, usually support for things like bill pay, mail management, and the general troubleshooting that you and I do every day with our daily finances. It's quite, when you start actually looking at the time it takes, there are just lots of little things that come up. A credit card bill that has a problem, something where they charge you a fee and you have to call them and say, hey, you shouldn't have charged me that, or please take that off my bill. So these are some of the kinds of things that we get involved with.
And sometimes the way that Cynthia and I will work together, we'll have a client call and maybe we've seen signs here or there of dementia or other health ailments that are kind of where their demeanor has changed. And we've noticed a kind of a bit of a slowdown. And we'll get a phone call from them and I'll ask for an odd amount of money, or a large amount of lump sum distribution from their account, which seems odd to us. And he said, well, we just need it. I'm paying some bills, or yeah, I got my credit card bill and it was a little more than expected. I don't know why, but I need this amount of money. And it seems off to us. So we'll reach out, if Cynthia has been hired to kind of oversee their finances, the day-to-day stuff, we'll call her and say, hey, can you meet with Bob and find out what's going on? And it may be okay. And we're okay with sending the funds that he's requested, but make sure that there hasn't been a fraudulent activity or a charge on his credit card that shouldn't be there. And he's, asking for money to pay this bill. And we want to make sure that before he pays the bill that, he's not become a victim of fraud, or that there's not something else going on. So that's one small example of how we can kind of work together to help, protect your loved ones and make sure that they're, on course and not becoming a victim in any way.
Yeah. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of that a little later here, but one of the first signs, I don't know if you go into people's homes much, but one of the first signs, Lisa, that we find is in someone's life when there's a problem is piled up mail. You think about you and I, how much mail we get every day. I've done some work in my own life to get a lot of that mail gone. But like I've had clients show up with 2 trash bags full of paperwork, and, just sorting things out, it can become overwhelming. And when the mail starts piling up, that's one of the signs that, someone may be struggling. I was in the home of someone in crisis who had cancer, and there were piles of mail and newspapers and auto shipments from Amazon, those kinds of things just everywhere. Life gets stressful when you have a cancer diagnosis. All you can do is deal with the day-to-day appointments and taking care of yourself. So that's when someone like me can come in and really help alleviate some of that stress. But in those piles of mail, we found a check for $60,000. Those kinds of things happen where things get forgotten or lost. Sometimes crucial bills get forgotten, like that annual premium for long-term care. Or this happened in our life recently. Our bank got bought out, and all those auto pays that we had set up that were all so convenient, you have to sit down and transfer every one of those to your new bank and make sure that you don't miss anything. So, you won't have a payment that gets missed or lost, or life insurance or long-term care, like I said. Cash flow is sometimes not tracked well, especially when you've got other things going on, and a check or checks plural will bounce, and those late fees can be significant and add up very quickly. Credit card, like you talked about, sometimes they get forgotten. People don't monitor them. There can be fraudulent charges. And what you have to remember is you have a credit card agreement, and after a certain period of time, you can no longer go back and dispute those charges. And I've heard stories, I've not experienced this, but I've heard stories of older adults who've had significant amounts on their credit card, and they just never realized it because they never looked at it. They just paid the bill. And, 6 months later, you go back and the credit card company's they're not going to help you because they have their rules. So if you have someone that's keeping an eye on those things for you day to day, it can be really important and can save you money in the long run. So I like to say that what I do is create order in a world that has become really much more complex. Tracking medical billing. Well, many older adults have Social Security or Medicare, I should say, and they have a supplement. And then they may have a prescription plan. So there's complications in life. They may have multiple bank accounts. And so reconciling those accounts and keeping them up to date so that cash flow doesn't get messed up can be a big deal, especially when you're talking ATM transactions and automatic debits to your account and then auto pay through maybe your bank's bill pay. I'm sure you've seen that, Lisa, where clients have had struggles with those kinds of things.
Yeah, we have. And I'd like to add to this conversation. I have 2 friends going through a similar caregiving kind of situation right now, and that both of their moms were recently diagnosed with dementia, and they're noticing, the decline in health over time. And they are wanting to step in and help with certain things. One of them, her mother is living on her own. She's single, not married. The other one, she is married, but my friend's mom handles the day-to-day finances on an ongoing basis. Her dad does not. So she's worried that, she's getting to the point where her mom can't do that. The issue is her trying to step in as a daughter and take over those bills. It's like taking away her mom's independence, and her mom's not real thrilled at the idea of that. So that's where, if my friend could introduce someone like you, Cynthia, to come in as this daily money manager, an outside person, I think it helps to kind of ease that transition, rather than, I think we often, what is the saying? We hurt the ones we love the most. So we take these things out on the ones we love the most. So I've seen the struggle with children and aging parents where they're trying to take over and help, and getting pushback. So I think this is a great example of where you could come in and help with making sure those bills are paid, and then coordinate with the children, as per the client's request. So that's where I see you benefiting the most, is coordinating with the kids, with the person that's going through it, and trying to kind of be that link for them.
Yeah, for many older adults, there's a trade-off there. They want their kids to know certain things, but they also want to keep things very close to the vest. And sometimes they're ashamed of things that happen. There may have been a fraudulent situation that's happened in their life, and they don't want anybody to know it. And those are things that can happen. And building that trust is really an important part of what I do. Sometimes you get involved in things that are very sensitive, and you have to be sensitive to that. I was very lucky. My mother let me take over her finances. But even with that, you have to recognize they are adults. They are, have always been in control, and giving them that respect and that control to the degree that they're able to have it. So for many people, I don't even sign checks or do anything like that. I go in and write the checks out, or help them set up their bill pay so that things are automatically paid. And with my mother, I would take all of her bills in, and we would file them together so that she could see what was being paid. It's a matter of respecting their independence and giving them the information so that they can feel comfortable. She would say, do I have enough? And I would say, well, you have this, this, and this. And she would feel comfortable that she knew where everything was. So anyway, many times a daily money manager will help people create that emergency or end of life plan so that family has a record of everything in case something happens. So not so much, but it will happen more and more as the baby boomers age. Things like passwords. The average person has like over 200 passwords now.
Passwords.
So learning about password programs is going to be it's going to be a big thing as people, the boomers age. Not so much for my parents' age or my sisters and brothers who are a little bit older than I am. They're not really all that invested in the computer. But passwords and then digital assets is a brand new thing that people are starting to really pay attention to. There are people who own websites, and people who own, there's, Bitcoin, obviously, and all those kinds of things, but even the simple cash apps that people use now for day-to-day things like Venmo, there can be money sitting there, and you have to know how to get to that money or it can disappear. I was involved in a whole presentation on digital assets, and it was fascinating. There are people who have, 500,000 miles in their airline account, and that's worth money. And when they pass, if you don't know it's there, that's lost and gone. Lots of those details that can be helpful to pull together. And so some of what I do is actually sit down with people and pull that all together, not because I'm going to take over and help them with their finances, but because they need something in place for if something does happen. And then their family may come in and handle those things. It's, as long as it's organized, it's easy for a family member potentially to come in and take over. In some cases, I will actually work as a POA for finances for people, a power of attorney, or I may help a family member who's taken on that role and help them keep the finances together. They're still the responsible party, but I can work either way. And I can even help with people who are trying to settle an estate. if there's a complex situation and they just don't have the time, I can come in and walk alongside them as a partner and help them walk through those things and give them the benefit of my experience in those areas. So particularly those are really important when you talk about solo agers, people who don't really have a support person, but that's always something to think about as you're talking to your parents and thinking about the future and what can happen. If you don't live in the same location, it can be really important to have someone on the ground. One big area that daily money managers help with quite a bit can be things like cash flow and budgeting. This is particularly a place where financial planners and daily money managers intersect in a really significant way. So Lisa, you help people kind of figure out their retirement plan based on what they think they're going to spend. On the other side, a daily money manager will talk about burn rate. So how fast are you actually burning your money up? And is that within the plan? If it isn't, then you have to make decisions. And again, those are not my decisions to make. It's my job to say, here's what's going on. Here's where you're spending the money. This is not going to work in Lisa's plan. And Lisa's got you scheduled for this amount of money every month. And if you need a lot more money, then the plan may have to change. And Lisa may have to go back to the drawing board and help you figure out what's workable for you and help you make tough decisions.
Right. And it's interesting because there's every meeting I have, there's always a disconnect in what people spend and what they think they spend. And when we, put it on pen to paper and look, it's like, whoa, I spent that much money last year. It's always very interesting conversations.
Yeah. Well, and those, I think about the sandwich gen folks that are listening, you don't realize until you get to retirement, but those 2 years before retirement, the year you retire, and the 2 years after, that 5-year time frame is so important to kind of have it locked down and know where things are going to be. Because if you look at the long-term value of the money and how it accumulates, if you make some big mistakes right up front, it really affects you out at the tail end.
Right. And I'll often encourage clients, okay, you're bringing in $100,000 today, and that's what you're living off of. And, you're saving this much of it. So you're actually living off of maybe 80,000. And you're telling me that you think you can live off of 65 or 70 in retirement. Before you actually submit the paperwork, let's try to live off of that. Let's see if you can realistically live on that dollar amount every month. And I'll force them to do that. And it's always funny because they'll come back, especially couples. Well, it wasn't my fault. She goes to Starbucks every day. Well, it wasn't my fault. He goes and plays golf every day, and he does that more than he told you originally. So it's always fun and enlightening conversations, but it's good because we get, it's okay. You want to play golf, you want to go to Starbucks. I just need to know these things so we can help. If this is what, brings you purpose, let's make it happen. But I need to know that and build that into your plan.
Yeah. Information is power. It really is.
Right.
Let's, speaking of information, let me take a minute here and address a topic that is so heavily talked about in the press. And I think people are hearing about it more and more, but when you actually get down to the nitty gritty, this is a real concern for sandwich generation families and their parents. The whole issue of financial vulnerability, financial fraud and scams. And as you said, Lisa, I'm sure you've heard the horror stories.
Are too many. Yes. There's a target on seniors, and it's interesting because they'll call us after and ask to put a freeze on their accounts because they know immediately when they hung up the phone that they shouldn't have shared the information they shared with the person on the phone, but now they don't know what to do, and they're in panic mode, and it happens all the time. And the sad thing is these fraudsters, hackers, they seek people out. They will, look in the obituaries and call and seek people at vulnerable moments. And it's very sad, but it happens all the time. Yeah. Particularly targets are women over the age of 80 who and people who are recently separated from their spouse, whether it's a death or that spouse has to move to a long-term care facility. They are targets. But this is where I always try to tell people, I try to educate them a little bit, because it's not just the older people that get in trouble. I had a friend call me, I guess about a month ago, and she was in a panic. She said,
I got this text message and I clicked on it, and then these people, told me that something was going on with my phone, and I let them install an app on my phone. And she said, and then I realized I was in trouble and I hung up.
Yeah, they
she
go down
called
this
me.
rabbit hole.
Yeah. She called me and I said, well, you need to go to your bank and probably talk to them about, if they had access to your information. And so she shut down a bank account. I mean, something had happened beyond just a phone thing, but she had to go get the app taken off her phone and make sure that nothing had happened to the phone. And, it's, again, the issue of time. You spend time on these kinds of problems. So that's where I spend a lot of time just educating people. I love to talk to people about this because the things that you don't know are everywhere. For example, when you have an older adult, you have to protect them from things like charity mail solicitations, and getting them off all those mailing lists is a project, but it can be done, and it can be done fairly easily if you just know how to do it. Those nice guy or gal criminals who will do the door knock solicitations and knock on someone's door and say, oh, you need your driveway fixed. We're doing driveways in the area. And suddenly someone has given them a bunch of money as a down payment and they're gone.
Disappear.
Yeah. And romance scams becoming a big, big deal. So, you don't even need to get me started with things like the internet and the telephone. I could probably go on forever, but I'm going to say a couple things here for the benefit of people listening. First of all, I live in a small town, and so I know a lot of the people that I work with personally, but in a city, particularly, if you have a contractor who's working like in your yard or a contractor who's working on your house, you do not let them into your home without a thorough vetting and a very good reason. They knock on your door saying, can I get a glass of water? Can I use your bathroom? No, you don't let them in your phone, in your home. You could be a victim of something because you don't really know those people. And older adults in particular, they want to be friendly and they want to be kind. So it's important to have some idea that you can be a victim in situations like that. Do they really need access to your home? And if they do, if they have to come in and paint or whatever, you want to make sure they're thoroughly vetted and perhaps even have someone there with you at the time when they're working. Because they're working in your bedroom, painting your bedroom, they could take time to go through your things. It's just, things can happen and you just have to protect yourself and think about these things. So seniors, as you said, are particularly vulnerable because they have assets and they're less familiar with all the technology. So they tend to use those passwords that are easy to remember, and they tend to be nice, tend to just be nice to people. And sometimes people don't deserve that niceness. But the other side is, as I said with my friend, these attacks can happen to anyone. There's something called whaling out on the internet because people target executives in corporations and they do it very stealthily. So there's no reason to be ashamed if you're a victim. What's important there is to report it to someone and get a hold of Lisa or someone like myself and get things fixed quickly. Go to your bank and figure out what you need to do. There are people everywhere who will help, but you need to just not be ashamed of it. I did this, it was silly. Here's what needs to happen. I'll tattle on my husband. My own husband had a computer thing. He couldn't reach me and something popped up on his computer. He clicked a button somewhere and suddenly he's got someone telling him that his computer's it's locked up and it's been, targeted. And he called the Apple people and they couldn't help. And so he called the phone number on the computer and they charged him $250, which we went to the credit card company and had taken off. But, he needed his computer. He needed to get the information he needed to get. And so it doesn't have to be just, an 80-year-old woman. It can be anyone.
Sometimes you're just busy, you're multitasking, or
Exactly.
Just like you, when we started this presentation, you accidentally hit the wrong button. What if that button leads you, so yeah, it can happen to anyone.
And, at best, you're closing an account and having AT&T check your phone for bad apps. But the worst case, you can lose a lifetime of assets. That really does happen. So I'm going to give you some simple things to think about and remember. And I'm sorry, I should probably put a slide together for this, but protect your personal identifying information. It's called PII. So that means don't carry your Social Security card or your health insurance card with you unless you absolutely need to. So you could actually have someone put these on your cell phone, if you have a cell phone, for easy access when you go to the doctor's office or when you need your Social Security number. But then you have to be sure to lock your cell phone. So like iPhone, I have my facial recognition on. That's really good for security. But any phone, you should have a lock code on that phone. Then just in your day-to-day life, and I know people hate this, but password apps and using those long, unique, complex passwords for especially the financial apps that you use. Make sure those are locked down with a good password, because there's actually some cute little videos out there that talk about why long passwords and complex passwords can really make a difference. But the first point of vulnerability in your own home is your home internet router. So you want to make sure that internet router is secured by, again, a unique password, and that it doesn't identify the kind of router it is or give any personal information about you. So you don't want the original name of the router on there so they know what kind of router you have, and you don't want your name there. And then, of course, this has probably been said a million times, but when you go to your local coffee shop, don't use that unsecured Wi-Fi to go on your bank account and check your bank. So you want to make sure that you're on a secure Wi-Fi site if you're going to go do anything financially. Another big thing that you should always think about and make sure it's just set up automatically is whatever computer system you operate, the software can be automatically and regularly regularly updated. So it's really important because they are always patching things to deal with these financial fraudsters and trying to make sure that their software is solid. So that's even more than having a program that keeps an eye on your, I forget what they call it, but even more than having a program that monitors your computer for bad actors is having your system software regularly updated. Don't click on those links in your emails and your texts. I can't tell you how many people I have clients that will say, "What this should I click this? Is this an okay link to click?" And I'm like, none of them are okay to click unless you know the person and you're expecting something like the link for this seminar. Don't go clicking things in your text messages and your emails just randomly, and that's difficult because you do get busy. But that's a real big thing. If you're not sure, instead of clicking that AT&T text message, just go to the AT&T side, sign in, and see if there's a message there for you. That's a better way to do it. And then the other thing that I tell people all the time is freeze your credit reports. I actually have a blog on my website, and we can talk about that at the end, but I have a blog that walks you through how to freeze your credit reports. Most people do not need their credit reports open unless they're going to take out credit. And if that's the case, you can easily find out which credit company they're going to go to, which credit reporting agency, and there are 3 of them that they're going to use. And you can go there and very easily unfreeze it for a period of time, for like 1 day or 3 days or whatever. But having those credit reports frozen is a really big deal because your data and your information is out there. You might as well just, accept the idea. Your personal information is out there in a hack somewhere. And eventually people can put that together. And if they do, they can go to the credit reporting agencies or they can go to a credit card company, use that information to open credit cards in your name that are sent to another address. It's something that's done all the time, apparently. And having it locked down is a really big deal. I had a niece who was a victim of identity theft twice, and the time she spent trying to get that all figured out was horrendous. So freezing those credit reports, I think, is a big deal for people. So I keep up to date on those scams, and my blog will cover some of those things. My Facebook page, I tend to put those things up when I see them come across my feeds. So, people who want to kind of keep up with some of that stuff, they can like me on Facebook and, sign up for my blog. Happy to educate people on things like that. So I do a lot of education, but when you think of me, I guess what I say to people is think concierge. So perhaps we were talking a bit about caring for someone who wants to move from their home to, say, an independent or assisted living. I can be on the ground with referrals and assistance. So working with care managers, realtors, placement professionals, organizers, move managers, all of those things can slip through the cracks when you're dealing with each individual person. And having someone that can coordinate that as a project is helpful. Maybe
And Cynthia, you've vetted all of those people prior to obviously.
Well, I have a lot of people who through the organizations that I work with, they're already kind of vetted that way, but I would also call them individually and try to give, I usually give people more than one choice and say, you call these people, you talk to them, here's maybe some questions to ask, some things I would look at, but they have to make that decision. I'm usually not going to make those decisions for them, but I will help them find the right people and help them make sure that, for example, some people are more expensive, some people are less expensive. It depends on kind of what level they want to be at. Many times you'll find people who are placement professionals and they can give you like a broad range of cost for different kinds of living arrangements and help people hone in on that. So I would work with someone and say, okay, here's a couple of placement professionals. You might like working with one or the other because I know this about that person or this about that person. But meet them yourself and see who you feel comfortable with. So maybe the opposite things happens and you have a loved one who wants to age in place and there are changes that need to happen in the home or transportation is a problem. Maybe you don't live quite in the same part of the country or, they're just far away from where you live and you need someone to help you, again, find those resources to support them and perhaps even help coordinate those resources. So when I get involved with something, I tell people I work as a concierge style daily money manager because I can help with a pretty wide range of situations. And it doesn't have to always be an older adult. It can be a younger person who's in crisis or someone who is recently widowed or recently divorced. Maybe they weren't the financial spouse and they just need a little support to kind of learn how to handle their own finances, just make sure that all the bases are covered. I can work with people for short term in situations like that. You were talking about your brother and sometimes younger adults can need support during crisis. So mental health issues and substance abuse and the like, again, someone to walk alongside them to support them with financial issues. Really, any life-changing circumstance, major accidents, cancer diagnosis, settling in a state, those kinds of things are places where I can offer resources, but I can also offer personal assistance. So Lisa, sometimes the first step in our process involves a connection with a financial advisor like yourself. I typically work with people who have already built a relationship of trust with their clients over the years and who, they already have someone that's helped them build a solid financial life. And then, as you said before, something changes and they look to you as their resource for advice and direction. So I don't know, you might think about some examples of situations that you've run into that can be triggers for those situations.
Yeah, and I think you've touched upon a lot of the common ones. Normally one spouse or the other handles the finances. So if the person who handled is the one who passed away, the widow or widower, they're not in a mental state. They're in a fog for quite some time and trying to pick up the pieces on an emotional level, a financial level, a physical level, and they just don't have the capacity. They just literally don't have the capacity to make important decisions, not only when it comes to big picture, their finances and their investments, but day to day, paying the bills. And if they don't know how to log in or they've never logged in or husband or wife handled doing all of that, what we try to do is, coach our clients and say, look, I know you don't like doing this. I know you don't want to be involved in this. And that's why your husband or wife handles all of this. And you do everything else over here in terms of running the household. But it's so vital. It's so important for you to at least have, a general picture of how things are run and know how to get, have a list. And I'll help you compile a list of where and how to get to your information. And if you just say, even if he passes or she passes, I just don't want to deal with it, then I'll connect you with someone like Cynthia. Look, okay, I'll work in concert with Cynthia to, act in your best interest. So we see that a lot because it's often one spouse or the other that handles finances. And then the examples that I gave earlier, I have clients and friends who are, I'm in my mid 40s, we're in our 40s and 50s now, and we're dealing with aging parents. And, you think as you're growing up, your parents and your grandparents never age. And we're now hitting this point in our life where, we're raising our children and the challenges that come with that. I now have a teenager, so I'm facing that, and I have that right in my face. And then, for me, I've got my brother, and I also have my dad, who is still around and generally in good health, but I worry about him. There are things that I'm noticing, and I'm pushing him to see certain doctors and do certain things. And he's pushing back a little bit, and that's where we are in our lives. But time is our most precious and valuable resource and asset, and there's never enough time in the day. And I think that we're willing to look to other resources like yourself. And on a financial aspect, it's worth sometimes paying someone to help you with this if it relieves your stress and produces more time for you to do the other things that are important in your life.
Yeah, so let me just talk a little bit about how someone would get started working with me. If someone's referred through a trusted advisor like you, Lisa, I actually give them an hour of my time for free just to discuss their concerns. I can be in their home or even like in your office if that's more comfortable for them. I can come meet in combination with you. Many times my engagement agreement will include several people that I'm authorized to coordinate with, like their wealth advisor or their lawyer. So I can meet with them wherever they're comfortable. And sometimes people that I meet with, you've referred some friends to me, they just need resources. And that's something that can easily be done. I'm not telling them who to work with. I'm just giving them a few choices and giving them the idea that there are these resources out here. Here's some people that you might want to talk with. But if they actually need a daily money manager, we then simply just agree on the specifics of what they want to get done. And there's an engagement agreement similar to the way a lawyer would work, and a small upfront retainer. And then I bill hourly in 6-minute increments. So it's just time spent. Now that may be for a one-time project, like pulling that emergency plan together for their finances. Or if they need me, it can be an ongoing monthly kind of arrangement, maybe quarterly, maybe monthly, whatever works for them. And sometimes it just may be an agreement for me to work as their power of attorney for financial matters in the future. They don't need me right now, but they want to put me on their paperwork, and they want to have somebody in line in case they end up in the hospital or they end up, needing some assistance, and they can just call on me. So those are all ways that I can work. And typically there's like a get to know you period where we'll pull together some basic information. There's always some basic things that you want to have pulled together about someone's finances. I'm sure you help people with parts of that as well. You're trying to focus on making sure that you know where all the pieces are. Now, while I typically work with someone in that case on like a monthly basis, sometimes those finances can just be automated, and then I can work remotely with occasional check-ins. It doesn't have to be all sitting down in person. But on the other hand, sometimes families want another set of eyes on mom or dad or an aunt, uncle. So a daily money manager can go into the home and kind of work as a friendly assistant where I sit down with them, we look at their bills, I write the checks out, they sign them, I make sure they get mailed, I help them balance their checkbook, all kinds of little projects that come up in the course of their life. And those are hours that a family member could spend time being with their parents instead of having to worry about the details. So that's kind of how it works. So let's talk a little bit about the organizations that I'm part of and how you decide to find a daily money manager, how you decide who to work with. We have such intimate knowledge of finances, just like you, Lisa. So confidentiality is so important. But beyond that, then vetting a financial professional is an important step. And I know you did a great YouTube video on that. And do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, it's still on our YouTube page, and it just talked about, what to look for, what to avoid in terms of, the letters behind people's names and professionals' names, and make sure that they actually mean something, and find out what the requirements were in order for them to obtain those letters or certifications behind their names. Find out what level of standard they're held to, from a fiduciary standard to a code of ethics, and who oversees them, and the advice that they're providing to you. You always want to make sure that there's some governing body overseeing anyone that's working with you or your loved one's money.
Yeah. So when I tell people, if they're looking for a daily money manager, the American Association of Daily Money Managers is the most reliable source, and they have a search process. If you go to their website, they require a thorough background check, as does the CSA group. They both do thorough background checks on their memberships on a regular basis. They both provide education and have a code of ethics. And Adam has a very clear standard of practice that their members must follow. One example of that is I do not accept or pay any referral fees as part of my practice. So that gives me a sense of independence in the work I do and the referrals that I make. You can know that nobody's paying anybody under the table for any kind of referral. It's all because we know who we're working with, and we've met the people, and we feel comfortable working with them. I also carry professional liability insurance for errors and omissions, like most professionals, including, I'm sure, yourself, Lisa. And then, you look at the background of a daily money manager. We are all very different in the way we work and the types of clients that we serve. In my case, I was once a licensed CPA. I have an accounting degree. I have an MBA. And I used to, in a previous life, I was a licensed real estate agent in both the residential side of things and the commercial side. I've had quite a bit of experience in executive relocation for the old 7-Up company. And I've done a tremendous amount of real estate management and construction in my career. And that covers a tremendous amount of ground in terms of the resources and the things that I've learned to do. In addition to that, I've worked as a fiduciary. I've managed some estates and trusts. I have one right now that I'm taking care of. And I can provide references and details of all that kind of thing. It's available out on LinkedIn, but also, if people want specific references and resources like that, I can give them references. Now, I'm also a CSA, which is the Society of Certified Senior Advisors. And this organization works a little differently. Its membership comes from many different professions, and they all educate, and the organization educates those people and certifies them for working with older adults. So there's a course that you take that covers a lot of aspects of aging and health issues and all kinds of things related to older adults. And it's you have people in that industry who are from all different kinds of careers. They're insurance agents. There are people who are organizers. I know one particular who deals with hoarding issues. There are people who are real estate agents, all kinds of different careers, but they all want to have a specific knowledge of how to work with older adults. So it's a great organization. They actually have accreditation done by 2 different organizations, ANSI and NCCA, and that's kind of a gold standard for quality in terms of their membership. And that little seal that you see there is actually on my website. You can click it, and it will show my active status as a CSA. So those are the 2 organizations that I belong to. And as a result, I have essentially a national network of people that are all part of these groups. We meet regularly on Zoom and sometimes in person for conventions, and we learn together. And we keep ourselves up to date on the things that we need to know to be experts in our field. So before I leave here, before we finish, I'd just like to focus on a couple of slides that are cautionary notes about when it's important to bring in some assistance with finances for an older adult. These slides, I hope, can be helpful for caregivers who are trying to decide when to take action to get help with the finances. And there's a yellow light slide and a red light slide. And like you would think about it, yellow light is caution, red light is a real warning. Yellow light issues listed here are some of the first warning signs that you should begin to think about getting a financial advocate to help with finances. And it's time to sit down and really start a discussion. Those are hard conversations. Lisa, are any of these you've seen in particular in your practice that you want to highlight?
I'll revert back to my earlier example where we got, a phone call from a client that asked for a large lump sum of money, which seemed kind of out of the ordinary. So in those type of situations, and we meet with our clients regularly, so we can see when there's a change in their behavior, even in the type of questions that they ask, the conversations that we have our own kind of yellow and red flags. And the way that we go about kind of approaching and handling those is we ask that our clients list a trusted contact. Now, the trusted contact is not a power of attorney. They have no say over the client's financial life, but they're a trusted contact that we can call and say, hey, your son, daughter, mom, dad, aunt, uncle is a client of ours. We've noticed some things that seem a little bit out of the ordinary. I'm not sure how often you talk with them or if you've noticed the things that we're noticing, but we just wanted to make you aware as their trusted contact. Maybe we received an email that seems odd. It looks like it's known as a phishing email. So an email that's coming from their email address, but the text is written in a way that does not sound like it was written by the client. So that'll prompt us to call their trusted contact and say, hey, we think their email may have been hacked. Why don't you give them a call and maybe see what's going on? So we ask that all of our clients put a trusted contact person on file when we see these type of yellow and red light signals, because we do really know and understand our clients on so many different levels that we feel that we're a good resource to be able to say, look, something seems off.
Yes. I think these are good things for people to be familiar with and actually to share with an older adult, because people want to take care of their own finances, and if they're seeing themselves here where maybe they've forgotten some bills and they recognize that it's not an unusual thing then. Excuse me. So just to highlight a couple of these, when people start neglecting, like balancing their accounts, excuse me, I made a little cough. When they stop, I'm going to lose it here. Go ahead and talk for a minute.
I'm sorry, Cynthia. So the other thing I was going to mention about these two, we talked about this leading up to the class, is we have Cynthia provided. For one, we have all of these slides that I'm happy to share with you, but again, you'll be able to access the class as the recording afterwards. But Cynthia gave me this kind of she calls her yellow caution lights, and the next slide is the red caution lights that I can send you just as a PDF of just these things to kind of watch out for, and you can kind of use as a reference or a resource, put it in your back pocket. So I can send you that information. If you can just request it through our email or through the website, and I can send that to you.
Yes, these red light ones are a little higher on the level, and these are ones where you really probably should be looking at a financial advocate, particularly Alzheimer's or dementia issues, or a TBI can happen to anyone. But there's actually a local guy with my group who fell on the ice the other day, and he's dealing with a TBI and is getting a lot of help from his family because he really just can't be on the computer for periods of time. And you do a lot of things on the computer in our business. So
right.
Anyway, be happy to send this to you. Just want to kind of wrap this up on my side. I am the principal of Best Life Advisors. So we serve people in the St. Louis region, and I'm more than happy to connect with anyone directly who would like to just talk about what they might need or where they might be able to get resources for particular problems. So, and I want to invite your clients to check out my website. It's listed here, bestlifeadvisors.us. Sorry. I have a blog there that I'm working on for people who want to put their emergency plans together. I'm going to be walking people through step-by-step things to consider, including the idea of freezing your credit reports, which is that's a blog that's already up. But certainly happy if you want to sign up for my blog or follow me on Facebook. I hope to be able to provide lots of little bits of education for people who are interested in keeping up to date.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You can also get to Cynthia's information through our website, actually, at arkfinancialwellness.com. We've got a whole page dedicated to what we refer to as our wellness partners. So we've got estate plan attorneys that we've vetted. We have CPAs, tax preparers. We have life coaches. We have real estate agents. I have a Medicare planning agent that can help you decipher among your Medicare options. So we've got a number of different wellness partners on that page. Cynthia is listed on there as well. So you can get to her contact information and her website through our website as well. So I thank you so much. I know we went over our time, so thanks for sticking with us. I hope that you found this information to be of value. As Cynthia mentioned at the very beginning, money managers and the thought and that terminology is kind of new and upcoming, but I think that what she has to offer and the resources that she can provide and has already provided to several of my clients and friends has been invaluable. And so I thank you for that. And I appreciate our relationship and look forward to continuing to work with you. Again, thanks to everyone for listening. We will send out a link to all those that are on here to the recorded session of this in the next day or two. I'll send that out to you via email. If you know anyone that's interested, feel free to forward that link along or just direct them to our YouTube page, which you can also get to through our website at arkfinancialwellness.com. With that, I'm going to close. Anything else from you, Cynthia?
Nope. Thanks for letting me come today, Lisa.
It's great.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
very much. Everyone have a great day.